sure that everyone's on the same page. Then I know the word capacity is thrown a lot in the nonprofit industry. And I want to make sure that as a leader, you understand what that is and you start challenging the thoughts about not having capacity and then really building. Because then if there's a capacity problem, I want that to be fixed, right? And that's why I serve nonprofits the way I do. But if it's not the issue, we need to look at a deeper problem because oftentimes if your go-to excuse is we don't have the capacity, I want to challenge that, right? Because a lot of organizations, for a lot of them, the truth is they don't need more people. You don't need more people, right? You need more structure. And what I want to talk about in terms of more structure, we're gonna like break this down a little bit. If you're leading a nonprofit and you feel like you always need more staff, more time, more money to get ahead, like this is for you. Because um, I'm gonna break down why structure and not capacity can be the real issue for a lot of nonprofit organizations. Um, because you might already have the team, you just don't have the systems to put them in roles or to have them doing things that actually contribute to your goals, right? So that's definitely something I feel is important to discuss. Now, for those who are new here, my name is Stacy. I'm a nonprofit consultant and I work with nonprofit organizations and social impact businesses earning between 1 million and $10 million a year. But they're still operating in startup mode. Believe it or not, there are organizations that make that amount of revenue that operate in startup mode. If you're a smaller organization, definitely this is still the space for you because I help nonprofit organization as long as you have um enough revenue, like you've made revenue before and you're trying to grow, there's something for you here at Savage Coaching and Consulting. So the clients that I work with mostly, what happens and why they're still operating in startup mode is because they have no real systems, right? No real delegation, right? No real strategy behind the scenes. So today I want to talk about something I hear almost every single day, right? We don't have the capacity. Now, capacity, like I said earlier, is a term that is loosely thrown around in the nonprofit industry. Hey, get a capacity building grant, get technical assistance, get this, get that, right? But it's not always true. So sometimes it's true, but most of the times it's not a capacity problem, it's a structure problem. Your nonprofit does not have the structure that it needs to grow in the way it's supposed to grow. So when I say capacity, what I mean by capacity, what that is your team's bandwidth, your time and energy, the financial resources of your organization, all of those would be considered capacity, right? But if you're constantly saying we don't have the capacity while you already have 5+ team members, a board with connections, right? Volunteers willing to help, some level of funding, the issue isn't capacity. Okay. You just don't have the clarity, you don't have the structure, you don't have the alignment necessary to make sure that you are going in the direction that you want to go in. Now, so I want you to clearly understand that it's not uncommon for nonprofits to think they do not have the capacity, but really making sure that you understand the difference between both is very important. Now, what structure looks like in a nonprofit organization? Clearly defined roles and responsibilities is one. Hi there on Instagram. I see the account Boy Bye. Let me know what your name is and where you're tuning in from. I would love to interact. So, structure for a nonprofit, what that looks like is define roles and responsibilities, systems that support the work, leadership that sets expectations. That's really a very important one because if you have leaders in the organization that have no expectation, they just tell you, oh, just support the mission, do what you got to do. Like they're not setting expectations for you to meet, right? And a calendar that reflects the actual capacity. Because you may have a fundraising calendar or grant calendar, and what's happening there is that you have big dreams, right? You have big dreams. You want to hold a gala with 500 plus people, but then there's nobody on the team that can actually put the event together. You do not have the capacity to do that work. And the other thing, you do not have the connections for that gala. Like you don't know anybody in the community, right? You really don't. Hey, Tatenda. And Tatenda says she's from Boise, Ohio. Hi, how are you? And if you are on any of the channels, I see some likes and stuff. Hashtag live, let me know. So your calendar needs to reflect your actual capacity and not what you want to do. Because then I know when starting a nonprofit, you might be thinking, oh, I see these organizations put galas together. I need to put a gala together. Are you there yet? Do you have community recognition? Do you have recognition among other businesses, small businesses, and things like that? Do you have relationships built? If you do not have these things, you might not have the capacity. You don't have the financial resources. Remember at the beginning, I talked about what capacity may mean. Your team's bandwidth, your time and energy, and the organization's financial resources. All of those are example of capacity, right? So when you don't have that structure that I just mentioned about the roles, responsibilities, systems, leadership, calendar that reflects capacity, what happens is the nonprofit is stuck in reaction mode. You're basically reacting to certain issues that fall on your lap. Hey, this opportunity came out, so we need to apply right now. Or we need data for XYZ, so this person is tracking, this person is tracking. So there is duplication of work happening. You're losing donors because people want to know how to give, but then there's no systems in place. Like nobody knows, right? You're losing grant opportunities. Your team is stressed out. I have seen it. When an organization is a hot mess, people on the team will be stressed out. They will hate their job. Okay? They will hate their job, and you do not want to be in that position because then it feels like it's the team, but it's not the team, it's the organization that's a hot mess. So you have to fix that and be an environment that people want to work in. Not because they can't do the job, but because no one understand what's going on. So you want your team to be in an environment that's structured enough and has the systems in place to help them do their jobs properly, right? I worked with an organization last year, a small team, under 2 million and in annual revenue. They had a very lean team. Because sometimes people think the more money you make, the bigger the team. No, they had a very lean team. They only had 3 full-time staff, and then they hired part-time staff as needed, right? The executive director like expressed to me how much work they had, how they were drowning. Excuse me. And discussed with me that they need to hire more people, right? But when I asked if the current team had job description, what everybody was responsible for, everybody's does everything was the answer, and that's very common, whether you like to admit it or not. So asking them also how they track their projects, all I got was a laugh. Nothing was really written down. They communicated amongst one another. No, they had an idea of what each person was doing, but it was no actual tracking system. The board meetings they were good, they were up to par, but then there was this randomness and inconsistency happening, and the structure needed to be added. So just a few simple steps and everything changed. So it wasn't adding the staff, it was adding clarity as to what everybody was responsible for, how they were going to keep themselves accountable. And that made a difference. Their events grew bigger in terms of fundraising campaigns and fundraising events. Those got bigger and they didn't have to hire anyone new, right? I know it feels good to say that we're understaffed, but that is not often the problem. Sometimes your nonprofit just doesn't have the structure that it needs. Okay, sometimes people like to hide behind we're understaffed or don't have the capacity because it's easier than admitting that they don't have the foundation and the organization is functioning like a hot mess. Like if you know me, you already know me. I will just say it how it is, right? Because structure, when you have structure in your organization, it exposes a few things, right? It exposes that the leader has poor delegation skills, right? It exposes lack of follow-up. It exposes undefined priorities, and it exposes a leader that's reacting instead of leading. So a lot of times, organizations will hide behind the excuse of being understaffed and not having the capacity instead of admitting the truth, which is the lack of structure and the other issues that come with it. So if that's hitting home for you right now, I want you to ask yourself a few questions. Do you have written roles for your team, right? That's the first question I want you to ask yourself. Does your board know what's expected for them? And did you set clear expectations for your board? I want you to really ask yourself that question and be very truthful. You can drop it in the comments or you can like write it to yourself. Again, I'm not gonna tell you to answer it right now, but if you become one of my clients, I will ask you that. Okay. And I want you to also ask yourself, are your systems documented or living in your head? If you have a yearly recurring event, right? And my question is, okay, what is the process to put this event together? Oh, I know it. I know what to do. That's not okay. There's a reason that you tell me you're burnt out. It's because you keep it all in your head and you don't want to delegate it to someone else because you're afraid of people messing up what you do well. And that's just like that's just like a level of control that you have to release eventually. You have to let somebody else in the nonprofit organization take the lead on certain things because you can't do everything. There are certain rooms that I need you to be in that you have to let go of the minute work. Okay. And can your staff see what the next 90 days look like, or are they just winging it? I want you to answer all of these questions. If the answer was no to most of them, then the capacity is not your issue. You tend to be the issue in some of these cases. So I want you to do a lot of introspection because as leaders, you need to be able to be objective and look at yourself and realize that sometimes the decisions you're making or actions you're taking are actually leading to the organization being stuck in a place that it doesn't need to be. So honestly, like you may be mad, you may say that I mean, I don't care. I'm just very direct with you. And I will tell you what it is. If you have these issues happening within your organization, I need you to start looking within self and start thinking about ways that you can change the way you lead so your organization can be more structured and have a better operation. Okay, because then that's one of the main reasons that even bigger organizations tend to be stuck and not able to grow. It's the lack of structure, it's the leadership, right? So I want you to clearly answer the questions that I asked. I'm going to ask them again. Do you have written roles for your team? Are your systems documented or living in your head? And can your staff see what's next for what the next 90 days look like? Yes, Ricky said truth questions are a hard reality. A lot of people don't want to answer the truth. A lot of people prefer avoidance. So that's something as a leader that you're going to have to do for yourself is ask yourself the hard questions. You don't need to overhaul your entire organization in one day, but you do need to stop saying we don't have the capacity and start asking where are we lacking structure and what can we fix right now? You can start by defining the team roles, set weekly priorities, documenting one repeatable process every week, and making sure your calendar aligns with your team's actual energy and capacity. Because until you do that, adding more people is just going to scale the confusion and add more people to the messy soup that you're making. Okay. So if that's what your organization is dealing with, I want to support you. I do offer 90-minute strategy sessions for every nonprofit, even the smaller ones, where we go deep into this exact thing. Where your structure is weak, that's what one thing that we evaluate what systems you need and how to turn people into a high functioning team. So I'll drop the link in the comments on Facebook. I do have a 9 o'clock meeting. I'll drop that in the comments on Facebook. Like I said, on Instagram, if you go in my bio, you'll see it in the Stan Store link. So definitely click there. I want you to stop guessing and actually get in front of these issues that you're experiencing because sometimes, like I said, it's not capacity, it's the structure of your organization. But with that said, I'm gonna go now and on to my next meeting. So I will probably see you later. Hopefully I see you later. If not, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.